list of discipline. Here's the offense, here's the consequence, and they showed me this, and it's like, so what do you think of this, Mr. Gasser? It's like, not much. Why? Because what are you gonna do if the kids don't break the rules the way the rules are written? You didn't think about that. It's like, yeah, that's why we use these core principles. Okay, so getting kids to become more responsible. What were the 4 steps again? Give tasks that are developmentally appropriate. So that's gonna, it's, you know, the same thing's gonna be true with the elementary kids as it's gonna be with a high school or middle school kid, right? Okay? So what's step 2?
Don't flip out.
Don't flip out if they blow it. See, that's the part where we have to step back. Young lady way in the back, you're so polite the way you raised it, and I don't know your name. You are?
Lori.
Lori. Okay. See, the key in this is, when you get old like me, you have to learn to trust the process, not the event. This is a process. This is something that emerges over time. There's no intervention that I can give you like that, and I'm gonna change this kid on a dime. It's a process. And that's the part where wise people step back and go, okay, I'm not gonna get flipped out if they don't change right away. I just gotta have confidence that down the road the kid's gonna change. Here's your example, my favorite kindergarten teacher. And remember, I had a pretty good sized building. I had 5 sections of kindergarten. This is like a big AA meeting, right? If I say something here, it stays here. Don't look at me that tone of voice. There's no, right? It's not gonna go out of the building. 4 of them, collectively, I don't know what in the world that they were doing in education. I mean, we could have done the helicopter videotape and book on rescue, rescue, rescue. I'll show you a little bit later on how bad this was. But one of them was really good. And I got hired at this school to be the building principal because they'd done a lot of staff trainings with them. I was like, oh yeah, here's our boy. If I knew then what I know now, no way would I ever have taken that job. I mean, it had way too much staff, too many staff that were into some pretty dysfunctional behaviors. But this one comes to me, and there's certain staff members that, you know, it's like, yeah, this one's got it. Okay. So she comes to me, she goes, hey, I want to make sure that I got a classroom that's kind of a love and logic classroom. I said, okay, so what do you got in mind? She said, well, I want to have a thermometer put outside the window on my classroom. Why? Done in typical elementary teacher fashion. Well, I guess you're going to have to come by to see, aren't you? The elementary teachers would say that. So I got Randy, the janitor, to go ahead and go install a thermometer outside the window, and I didn't think anything about it. And then like a month later, you know, I happened to be walking down the hall. You know, I did the management by objective, only mine was management by walking around type of thing. And I heard her talking to these kids. And she said, you know, Kelly, it's decision-making time. Time to go out for recess. Let's check and see how we have to dress.
Yeah.
Has she now become a little thematic? She has, okay. Oh, look at this, Kelly. It's 57 degrees out. Kelly, I always wear a sweater outside because in Wisconsin, you never know when the wind's gonna blow and it'll be colder. But you know what's gonna be fun? It'll be really fun to see which kids figure this out. Let's go. Now, what is she hoping is going to happen based on those 4 steps? That all of them are gonna get dressed, or some of them are gonna blow it? She's gonna hope that they're gonna blow it. Now, although, I'm just talking to Kelly. Watch how this woman was a master at manipulating kids. She was a master. Were the rest of you listening as I'm talking to Kelly? Why? Because you want to know, what is she getting to know that you're not getting to know? See, it's like, tonight's Friday night, right? How many here will be going out for fish? How many? Everybody goes out for fish from Wisconsin on a Friday night. Fish and beer, right? That cheese curds. Okay. Now, if you're sitting in the restaurant and there's this young little couple and they're having dinner and he's just getting his butt chewed out. Are you gonna listen? Or are you gonna drink your Chardonnay and eat your salad? What are you gonna do? You're gonna listen. Why? Because you're nosy. Right? See, she knew that as a way of getting kids to think. Okay, what's step number 2? Hope they allow it. See, now what she's hoping is that, because you can't write a weather policy that's gonna fit for everything. I mean, God knows what you're gonna have for weather around you. If you don't like the weather, wait, 12 hours and it's gonna change. Okay, and see, come be a kindergarten kid for a second. Come be a kindergarten kid. Okay, see, what she's hoping is, I'll grab her, you gotta wait over top of this thing. Come out. Okay, see, what she's hoping is that some little dweeby kid, come on down here. She's hoping for some little dweeby kid to come up and go, Mrs. Powers, can I go and go get my coat? I'm really, really cold. I only got my shorts on. And see, D, what was step 3? With lots of what? Empathy. She'd go, oh, sweetheart, I get like that too when I don't wear, a sweater and warm clothes. But you know what the good news is? Hey, tomorrow you get to make a decision again about this. In the meantime, if you run around really fast, I don't think you'll notice it. And then she just kind of walked off on the kid, and the kid would kind of stand there kind of thunderstruck like, my mom wouldn't do that. But see, at 57 degrees, is the kid going to die of frostbite? No. If you get a telephone call on a kid and a parent on that one, you automatically diagnose that parent as what? JPN. Just plain nuts. And see, which parents are going to call? The functional ones or dysfunctional? Why don't the functional ones call? They have this little thing called a JOB, don't they? Right? They're working. See, okay, let's put this into perspective. You can't even run your own family, but you're over here trying to tell me how to run the school? Help me out. See, that's another thing that's got to come to a screeching halt is we can't have dysfunctional people running the district. You're going to have to make some people unhappy. And see, that was another part of the reason why after 2 years, I had to leave this principalship where I was at because I wasn't going to put up with this. And of course, they were mad at me, and I was mad at them. And I was like, you know what? I will go back into shrinkdom. Where I get to deal with people that at least I can put labels on, and if I don't like them, I can discharge them. I'll throw them in the hospital. I'll put meds on them. Okay. Now, it's got to be a little funny, right? You guys are way too serious. Okay. All right. Anyways, point being is, remember what we talked about procedural learning. How do you accomplish that? This is that little practice thing. How do you accomplish that? Every recess, she would go to the thermometer and go, well, hey, Ange, decision-making time? It's November 15th today. It's 22 degrees. Ange, what did we learn in science today about liquid below 32 degrees? They do what? Oh. And then see, watch the skill that this woman's got. She would look at her kid and she goes, I don't know why, but Mr. Gasser likes him so much. He just always gives me the best kids. Have you ever praised kids and some of them got worse? Why? See, this is another thing too that they didn't teach us at UWL. They taught us at UWL that we just praised kids and we threw praise around like the Pope does holy water. The kids would just respond. What are you going to do if you got a psychologically damaged kid that doesn't believe that? That's what's called cognitive incongruence. What you said does not match my label. Here's another thing that's different than what it used to be when I broke into teaching. You have far more kids that are psychologically damaged. So using strategies of praise all the time will not work. I'll tell you later on what we'll do in place of that. But see, praise only works for kids that believe it. It's like those behavioral mod charts. You guys spend a ton of time doing behavioral mod charts. Those only work with kids who really want to please you. Otherwise, all it does is it creates an account that you're keeping track of tallies. Does that make sense? When you've got seriously disturbed kids, they don't care if you're happy. In fact, it's entertainment to watch you get mad. It is. You work with, if you do, maybe you guys want to have one of those workshops again at Winona this summer on how do you work with the really scary kids. See, scary kids, what they'll do is they'll look at you and they'll get into lots of, I didn't get it, what'd you say? And then they'll get you to repeat it again and again and again. And what they're really thinking is not, oh, thank you, I have such a kind, loving, caring parent. They're thinking what? You're too stupid to figure this out. Or, you're not strong enough to stand up to me. Rule of thumb is, I'll tell you once, maybe twice, because I tend to be kind of soft-spoken. I will never tell you 3 times. You tell a kid 3 times, sweetheart, you are getting played. See, and you gotta remember, what kids do I have? I don't have the nice little Casper Milquetoast kids. I get the scary dudes and scary chicks club kids. The ones that drive you guys nuts. And I like it because it's job security. Because nobody else wants to work with them type of thing. Does that kind of make sense? See, Dee would do this every day. In fact, I even let her have an extra recess because of what she was doing. Now, here's the payoff for it, Chuck. I didn't notice until I started watching them one day in the hall, getting ready to go home from school. The other 4, they're letting these kids out 15 to 20 minutes early to get dressed to get on the bus. Now, think about this for a minute. 20 minutes a day times 5 is how many minutes of instructional time just got lost? That's 100 minutes. That's 400 over the course of a month. That's 1,600 over the course of the 4 winter months. I was so embarrassed about what was going on, I could not tell my superintendent this was taking place. Dee could get the kids ready in 5 minutes or less. Why? Because we practiced it. She didn't have to remind them to put their hat on. She didn't have to remind them to, put snow pants on, gloves, mittens, all that kind of stuff. Because why? That was just the way you did it in Dee's room. And see, then, if she had that, come help me again. See, if you got that mastered, then here's the other bonus of this thing. We're gonna walk across the front here, okay? See, what she do then is, let's come up on stage, come on. Okay, see, what Dee would then do is she could walk with the kids and provide structure in unstructured settings. As she's walking around, it's like, hey, what are you gonna do this weekend? You're going over to Grandma's? How's Grandma's dog? Is Grandma's dog better? Grandma better?
Yes.
She's now doing what? She's doing all this relationship bonding stuff. How many seconds did that take? And I underscore the word seconds. See how you can build relationship with kids and you don't have to spend hours doing this? You know where the big payoff was then, Chuck? Take a look at those kids' reading scores on the Wisconsin Knowledge and Concept Test, WKCE. Her kids, you track them, were all better readers. Why? Because she worked so hard at developing those relationships with kids that they came to school and had fallen in love with her. Does that make some sense? See, until you can get kids to, and don't turn this around and go, well, that sounds kind of incestuous. Because they did a presentation out in New Haven, Connecticut, in the shadows of Yale one time. And they had a program out there called Teach America, where all you have is just a college degree they let you teach. Scary. Because some of these people, it's like, oh my God, you are in a classroom? I got this one woman who goes, well, that just sounds sick, getting kids to fall in love with you. Yeah, psychologically get kids to fall in love with you. See, let me give you, this is, we're gonna weave in a little bit about how you start turning kids around. Concept called affirmation theory. True story, but let me give you the historical background behind it and why relationships are so important. Little guy in a 4th grade class, looks a little attention deficit disorder, not doing schoolwork. And always know that anger plus frustration always breeds misbehavior. I mean, just always breeds misbehavior. And he doodled a lot. And this teacher was heavy on no doodling. And every time she'd see him doodling, give me that! You're not to doodle in this classroom. See, what she's also getting caught up into what? Trying to control things that are not controllable. The adult that's not terribly wise gets into doing that. And the psychology world is trying to control soft muscle tissues. You'll never win, and that type of thing. So at the end of the school year, she goes to the 5th grade teacher. Well, would you like to see my notes, on this kid? He's gonna be a handful, and you thought you had bad kids last year. Wait till you get this one. I don't know how many times you ever hear that one. Okay. So anyway, 5th grade teacher, much more skilled. And she sees little Roger doing some doodling. And she goes over, and she doesn't, like a Scud missile after him. She just kind of a little stroll, comes over and goes, hey, I noticed the doodle. When you're done, could you share that with me? Could I have it? Shocks the kid. Yeah. He gives it to her. A couple days later, she sees him doodling again. Hey, I think this doodle's better than the other one. Can we trade? You can have them both. And she didn't go nuts with this. But what is she doing? She's noticing this kid's skills, not his weaknesses. Difference again about magic people. Christmas rolls around. He comes back from Christmas vacation. Colored pencils. Now we got colored tools. Hey, can we trade? I'll give you all the other ones from this one. No, you can have those too. Which, by the way, now what's starting to happen with the amount of schoolwork getting turned in? Going up or going down? Going up. She said, I knew I made it over the mountaintop. And when he comes to me one day and goes, do you want me to take care of all those behavioral problems in the 5th grade on the playground? She just kind of smiled and goes, no, I got it, it's no big deal. Has he fallen in love with her?
Mm-hmm.
In a sick way or a healthy way?
Healthy.
Goes into the 6th grade, teacher not as skilled, sees him doodle, walks over like a Scud missile. Now he's been trained to what? Does he have to hide it or leave it out in the open? Leave it in the open. He's got it in the open. She not only grabs the doodle, but she grabs the pencils. You will never doodle in my room again. But see the seed that woman planted in 5th grade? Did it ever die? Or did it grow into fruition? Who am I talking to? Talking about an adult.
Charlie Schultz.
And Walt Disney. See, the things that you plant in kids' heads, you will never know lots of times how they grew from that. Jump into this handout if we can for a moment. I'm going to give you, and the reason why, Chuck, I give this handout the way I did is because what I've learned over time is that as I'm working with kids, I want to have this kind of template about how am I doing it. Whether I'm a para or I wind up being a classroom teacher, it doesn't make any difference. Paras, you're a teacher in my eyes. Is that I want you to step back and I want you to think about what's your belief system about these kids. And what you're going to have in the lounge, I learned, young teachers, you're going to have some teachers that are psychologically pretty healthy. And what they do is they believe that this is a lot like an apple. And And inside an apple, you're always gonna find what? A core and a seed. If I nurture that seed, it'll eventually grow. And that's that kind of, unconditional type of love. I mean, this is really important. We're the middle school people. Give me your hand. I mean, middle schools are kind of a cool place to work at, I thought. A lot of other people don't like it because middle school kids are kind of weird. I kind of thought it was neat because it's like going to Halloween every day. I mean, they're always kind of different. And see, these are the teachers that I'm there to fill the hole in the kid. Teacher B doesn't approach it that way. Teacher B is really dogmatic. You're gonna do it the way I told you to do it. Kind of like that second grade teacher I talked about, where it's like, and her kids could read, but they were just scared to death of her. They're absolutely flat out scared to death of her. She had this horrible, nasty temper, and she'd embarrass kids. So like, they're just kind of in fear. And see, a lot of times, what happens is, teacher B gets really mad at teacher A. See, like when I taught, I'd love to tell you I had these really great lesson plans, I was great as a instructional coach. I sucked at all of that. But I had really good relationships with kids. I mean, like early in the morning, when you're supposed to do your little house supervision type of thing, I didn't have to go out in the hall. I'd have 80, 90 kids in my room. And when building principal came one day, I was like, what are you doing with all these kids in your room? Supervising? Aren't you supposed to be out in the hall? Well, what do I need to go out in the hall for? I got 20% of the whole student population here in my room. And see, I could get kids to do things for me that they wouldn't do for anybody else. I'm the freshman football coach. I got my running back, who's kind of a rounder. One day he's running on the hoods of cars out in the parking lot. Building principal was like, get out there! Of course, you can just figure out what this kid, the signal he gave back to the building principal. You're number one, baby. So he comes to my room. Get that kid off there! I was like, well, why didn't you do it? I'm teaching, because he won't listen to me. I walked out there and said, Ollie, come here. Okay, coach. What are you doing? Oh, I just got mad. But see, teacher B will not like teacher A. And see, teacher B is not there to fill the hole in the kid. They're there to have the kid fill the hole in them. And lots of times, teacher B's have some junk in the trunk. And they get really, really rigid. I feel really bad for teacher B's. Because what happens lots of times is you get 10, 15 years into this occupation, and you can't get along with kids, and they will literally eat you alive. And the ones that are the most challenging are those behaviorally disturbed kids, because they'll read you like a book. They'll know how to light you up, and they'll get you. And then you're trapped in a career. Well, what am I going to do now? If you're teacher B, what do? You want to step back and say, okay, hey, what's going on? What's going on for me? And why is it that I tend to be the person that's always getting it on with kids? What's happening? Because there's always a reason behind it. And why is it that this other teacher never seems to have discipline problems? And see, lots of times teacher B will be mad at teacher A because like, well, you're just not tough on the kids like I am. I don't want you screaming kids through the day. Here's rule of thumb. You have to take good care of yourself. I gotta set boundaries and limits with kids without getting into anger, lecture, threats, and repeated things. Let me give you an example. Way back, little kid. My daughter, 18 months old. Strong-willed little bugger. And how many here felt like they had a pretty strong-willed kid? Keep your hands in the air. Let's compare stories. Strong enough that they would hold their breath and pass out. Turn blue. Go into convulsions. Mine did. She looked like a little carp on the beach, And I'm going to keep talking, but I got to come up here and get a folding chair to use as a top here for a second. So okay. So she does this one Saturday morning, and Sue and I were having coffee, and Amy's told no for something because she's the only kid that's up. She holds her breath, passes out, and starts flopping around on the floor like a carp on the beach. Of course, my wife freaks out and goes, "Oh my God, Paul, she's not breathing, call 911." Now, is my kid in any medical danger at this point? Science teacher? No. Why? Because God put this little switch in the back of the head that when the carbon dioxide level gets so high and the O2 level gets so low, you're going to breathe. I don't care how snarky a kid you are going to what? You are going to breathe. I don't even know if I put my coffee cup down. I'm just kind of watching my wife freak out on this. Of course, now is she happy with me? And she's thinking, "Oh my God, I'm so lucky I got married to an American family." Didn't happen. So, I mean, we had this kind of little battle going back and forth, but tell me if I did the right thing based upon my kid's expression on her face. Sue can't see this, but I can see it. Here's Amy's face. Which said what? "Mommy, I got you." And see, this went on for about 2 or 3 months. And yeah, we're sleeping on opposite sides of the bed because we're mad at each other and our parenting. And it all came to a head one day when, how many of you like doing retail therapy? Shopping. Okay. My wife is heavy into retail therapy. She goes to the grocery store. And then she's back. This is unheard of with my wife. See the van coming up the street. I know she's mad when I see the front of the van do this. That's the thing when it hits the driveway. Then she half steps the kid into the house and flips out. She goes, "Oh my God, I don't know how I'm going to be able to cook again. You know, I'm going to have the Swaz man come every night and go to Quick Trip all the time and get okay, I can't shop." You did it again, didn't you? Well, I'd like to see you go shopping. Now, man, is the gauntlet down? The gauntlet's down, isn't it? Like, you can't shop with the kid. Give me the list, give me the kid, I'll head back to the store. Well, in the meantime, you know, they've cleaned up the store. And see, my wife always gets so worried about what would people think. And I said, you don't go to the Family Bonding Center. You've been to the Family Bonding Center, right? Walmart. Do you go to Walmart to build friendships? No. I don't care what they think. I mean, when you get older like me, I don't really care what people think. If you like me, you do it. If you don't, you don't. That's kind of where it rolls. So I put my kid back in the mobile throne, better known as shopping cart, which also, think of how neurotic that had to be, the person that designed this. Why would you put a screaming kid this close to you, facing you? I mean, I put the little sucker in the frozen cart. We all mow in the frozen food section and say, "Yeah, we can blue for another reason." But remember, Amy's going to turn 25. She's 18 months old, so this is back before they had all the shrink wrap and things that you could weld the kid into the shopping cart with. I'm afraid she's going to fall out. So I take her out of the shopping cart, I put her on the floor. You know, she makes a beeline over the shelf, grabs something, I don't even remember what it was, then comes back. You know how little kids move, they kind of move like a sloth, you know, when they're 18 months old. And then they're like, "I don't want to do this." You know, the voice that you want to take a shower afterwards type of thing. Like, no, that wouldn't work for me. Am I taking good care of myself? Am I taking good care of myself if I'm screaming at my kid through Walmart? No. I mean, do you ever look at how ridiculous some of those parents look when they're doing that? So she holds her breath. She's now flopping around on the floor. And I have this woman come over and she goes, "Sir, is that like your kid over there?" Dang right it is. She's got this mortified look like, "I can't believe that you do that." And which was, you know, probably seconds, but for this woman it was hours. Because, I mean, how many times have you tried to discipline your kids out in public and you got the community do-gooder that's got DHS on speed dial? You know, and see, Amy comes back to, she pinks up, and I just look back and I was like, "Are you coming?" "Yeah." Did I keep this boundary? Did I stay out of anger, lecture, threats, giving repeated warnings? Yeah, set the limit. See, here's where it paid off. Down the road, she starts dating a creeper. The type that you want to take out to the woods, tie to a tree and let the critters get them. But shoot them's too kind. And I knew this relationship was bad, because I just look at her cell phone minutes and text messages, and it's like, oh my God, this isn't good. And one night, you know, and we were going out and doing a little Culver's therapy. That was, you know, Amy and I go do a little Culver's therapy. And then one night, I get home, and I don't even have my coat off. She goes, Daddy, we have to go to Culver's. I'm like, sweetheart, I am tired. I'm not even eating yet. She goes, get your coat on, you'll be fine. Okay? We don't make it to the end of the block, and she's in tears. And of course, his dads were what? I'm zeroed in, this is my baby here. And this is the part, ladies, you cannot listen to this. This is just a man conversation. Tyler's gonna break up with me if I don't perform oral sex. Move on. You weren't supposed to be listening. Now, before I could say anything, the next thing that comes out of her mouth is, I'm breaking up with him right now. Now, according to the MasterCard commercial, that is? Do you know what my daughter does now for an occupation? She's a social worker in a male sex offender prison. She is labeled as why? She's got really good boundaries and limits with kids. Doesn't get into lots of hassles, because we're just not going that way. So, key thing is, what are common issues of people who struggle with kids, or what are common issues of people who struggle with kids due to behavioral issues? What's your core belief? I want you to answer that right now, but how many have therapy sessions with themselves in the car? That's a therapy session with the car, in the car. Here's another thing I want you to think about. Number 2, when you have kids that are not behaving, they're not working for you, they're making you lots of extra work. This should not be a workshop that I want you to work harder. Because you're already working way too hard now, in my belief. You're underpaid, underappreciated, and you're putting in less hours. Agreement? Okay. But here's the one thing that lots of us have not been taught to do, is begin to step back and start to assess what's going wrong. See, it's easy to label the kid as L-E-Z-Y, B-R-A-T. I don't think kids wake up in the morning and go, I wonder how stupid I can look in class. See, when you got kids not doing work because they don't believe they can do the work, is that a psychologically healthy behavior or unhealthy behavior? That's a psychologically healthy behavior. Because what I'm doing is I'm protecting my little fragile self-esteem. Be like, for us, if we wound up having a little parade across the stage with no clothes on after lunch, I don't know about you, but I'm not a part of that one. Okay? And see, do kids come up to teachers and say, pretend you're a math teacher for a second. Do kids come up and say, hey, by the way, Mr. Schmidt, you know, I don't want you to take offense to this. This has got nothing to do with you, but I don't think I do very well in math, so therefore I won't be doing your math today. Do kids ever have those kinds of conversations? Yeah. But the wise teacher is the teacher that understands that kids talk in code. And what's the code sounds like? I don't have to do this. My well man doesn't do it. He makes more money than you do, which is probably true. That's the difference. See, back up for a second a paragraph. Do teachers ever talk in code? Yeah, but what's it sound like? These kids are so lazy, they just don't do anything. That's a teacher talking code, basically saying, I have no idea what to do with this kid. I am out of bullets in the gun, figuratively. Okay? I'm going to offer you this. I'd like to have you step back, because you don't have enough psychology time to come in and come evaluate every kid, right? True? I mean, you got what, 1, 2, 12? How many you got? 1, you're in. Okay, so unless you're planning on taking residency here, we gotta come up with a different way of doing this. So your very first question is, if I got a kid who's not doing stuff, particularly coaching, what kind of relationship do I have with this kid? How do you flush that out? Do I have a relationship or not have a relationship? I'll give you one that you can do in 5 seconds or less. To flush this out is, I wanna go to a kid and I wanna say, hey, would you do this just for me? And then I do what? I walk away. See now, did you see the face that would scare you and never want to do anything again? Or what'd you see? You saw a smile, I made eye contact with you, you saw some teeth, smiling teeth, not See, it's all about what? It's all about relationships. How many ever gone to Culver's restaurant? I think the best advertisement for Culver's is anybody that's ever gone and eaten at a McDonald's. Because what's service like now at McDonald's? Janky at best, isn't it? Culver's, great service. Why? Because Craig Culver, and he lives this way too. See, Craig lives just across the river from my hometown, Lodi, down there in Sauk City. And you'll see Craig in the summertime out delivering trays to cars in the drive. He walks the talk. But it's that little difference. Another one is, how many ever gotten gas at Quick Trip? How's that staff treat you? Usually what? Hey, we'll see you again next time. Saying what? It's that little bonding. I've gotten really spoiled too, doing a lot of traveling, speaking. I will never stay in a Super 8. I will not stay in a Roadstar 6. Why? Because I'm used to customer service in Hampton Inn or Marriott. Hampton, whoever's doing the customer service training there does it well. Like Sunday night, I'll be down in Dubuque. I'll stay down there. They know me. I walk, hi, Mr. Cass, how you doing? When I'm checking out, I was like, hey, you flying today? Where you going? And that does what? Next time when I get to pick, where am I spending $100 for a room? It's gonna be where? It's gonna be Hampton Inn. Are you in the customer service business too? Here's a little soundbite. You can't make somebody mad and then try to sell them something. Does that make sense? So how do you flush out whether or not you got a relationship? I go to this kid and I ask him to do something for me, or I could say, could you stop doing that just for me? Thanks. And then see what I'm doing is I'm using that good relationship evaluation with that assumption of compliance. I'm gonna just assume you're gonna comply. If you don't comply, what's that tell me about my relationship? Get one. See, if I'm your building principal and you're coming in and you're latching on to me about kids and behavioral problems, what's the first question if I'm your building principal I'm gonna ask you? Got a relationship with a kid? I did a presentation down in Janesville, had like 300 teachers in that. I had one teacher. What would I want a relationship with that kid for? What would you tell him? Get out of education. Go become the Walmart greeter or something like that because you're in the wrong occupation. See, the only way you're going to turn people around is you got to offer them something better than where they've been. If you can't do that, what credibility do you have? That's the reason why I get as many people as I do to come see me. You know, my Gunnison office I'm working in right now, the administrator said, well, you know, we'll have to see if we have enough people, you know, and I said, you won't have a problem. I said, your problem will be in 2 years after I've been here is, what are you going to do with all the people? I know it sounded really grandiose, guess what problem we got right now? What are we gonna do? That's the reason why I'm doing internships. I'm getting staff from, or getting students from Viterbo to see some of the people I can't see. And it's all about what? What got me the job here today?
About the relationship.
And word of mouth. Is it that I'm that wonderful? I don't think so. But it's all about walking that talk. So, how about if I give you that strategy on how to build a relationship with a kid in 60 seconds or less? Are you game for it? This is not in your handout. This is free. I won't even charge you for it. Here we go. All right, now if you follow these steps I give you, and this kid is absolutely no better, what's the deal? Where? I was kind of thinking fields in Wisconsin Dells. Did you read there? Oh, yeah. Okay, so step number one is, I want you to think about a kid that you're going to try this out on, and then whisper it to the person next to you. And don't pick a Casper Milquetoast kid. Pick a kid that's got some issues. Because otherwise, if you pick a soft kid, then it'll be like, Jake. Okay, everybody got one? Or you guys say like yes or no? Yes. All right, step number two. What I want you to do is I want you to do a little kid watching. And what I want you to look for is non-academic things that this kid has as a strength. It can't be academic, because if you do it academic, then the kid's going to smell a rat. Okay? So how do you start to spot some of that? Just look at the clothes that they wear a lot of times. If I got a kid who's wearing a Cabela sweatshirt, what are they probably into? Hunting, fishing, camping type of thing. Okay? If I'm looking at your sweatshirt, what am I thinking that you're into? Hoops, right? I'm into that. Okay? What are you into? Man, that's the things that trigger us. How about for you? Soccer. A lot of times that's a giveaway. If you can't notice anything at all, and this is a kid that likes to argue, just say, hey, I noticed you sure like to argue. I noticed you like peanut butter and jelly. Okay? Now, step three is I want you to develop 6 sentences, and they all start with the words I noticed. Okay? And it does not, and put a warning on the end of this, this does not end with, oh, and I think that's great. Shut up. Just say you noticed. Now this is particularly fun with middle school and high school kids because it'll freak them out. And I particularly love to mess with middle school kids. Yeah, what of it? Dude, I just noticed it. Does everybody need to be noticed? Yeah. That's the reason why we have mirrors. Right? Because you always want to take a look at, hey, how am I kind of coming across, right? Does that make some sense? So how many sentences? 6. All right? See, what we're doing is this. Remember we talked about kids from alcoholic, crazy families? What should happen is they got a psychologically healthy parent who's filling this glass of their kid. You got a lot of kids coming to school where the glass doesn't have a lot in it. Parenting is a dance of codependency. If I don't have a healthy adult, I don't have anybody to dance with. For some of your kids, you will be the healthiest adult in their life. Agree or disagree? See how important this is? We had a lot of time I'd step back and I'd say, hey, let's talk about your greatest teacher, your best teacher ever. You remember it like it was just yesterday, don't you? I'm going to end our presentation later on today talking about the impact that teachers have made in my life. Because guess what my parents did as I'm growing up? Farmers. We had 4 farms, 2,000 head of cattle, about 6,000 hogs. But as I grew up in a townhood, who did I emulate? My teachers or my parents? My teachers. I'm an adopted kid. And my mom and mom and stepdad really should have gotten a divorce. It's still not a whole lot better. But I was able to get through that period of time in life based on what? And watching who? My teachers. Particularly my male teachers. See, that's why it's so important to have a man at all levels. Because I had no idea how to be a man. I had no idea how to treat women. I watched my stepdad the way he treated my mom. Like, oh, not everybody treats women that way. You guys play a huge role in little boys' lives. You want to take a look at domestic violence and, you know, they're into all, it's creating all these different programs for women. Most important thing is, start teaching men how to be good role models for little boys. And then you aren't gonna have little boys thumping on little girls all the time. Agree to disagree? Okay, so, step 3 is gonna be what? 6 sentences, okay. Here's step 4. Find a place and time that you can go ahead and deliver these messages without embarrassing the kid. So it might be you put it in a note and just stick in the bottom of their backpack. Or you might whisper it to them as they're walking down the hall. Or you might pass them a note as you're walking down the hall. But it's just that little thing I noticed. Chuck, you know what's one of the most important things that my administrator does in our hospital? She gets out of her office and makes it a point to walk through the hospital at least once every day. You see her every day. I've worked in facilities, I didn't even know who they were, other than by name, saw the picture, they never show up. And you know what? At 7:45, lots of times in the morning, when I'm there before other people, guess who's already there? She is. A lot of times at 7 o'clock at night when I'm heading home, guess who's still there? She is. She walks the talk. And she makes everybody, even the point of the custodians, she says, the custodian, she knows everyone by name. See how important that is? It's all about that relationship building thing. Now, here's step 5. Step 5 is, I want to go to this kid at least twice a week for the next 3 weeks, and I lay my sentence on the kid. Now, the reason why we said that you can do this, count in 60 seconds or less, because this should not take any more than 10 seconds. And see, if I got somebody who's saying, I haven't got time to do that, I'm coming back with, you don't have time not to do that. You're making yourself so much extra work trying to get kids to do things that they don't believe that they can do. You're wearing yourself out. Cheat. Use my strategy. I don't work that dang hard trying to pound things into people. Is that making some sense for you? I mean, again, you work way too hard. So, step 6 is, if this kid's in an emotional moment, don't use it. Shut up. If they're mad, you don't walk up and say, hey, yeah, by the way, I noticed that. You got a Rushford Peterson sweatshirt on. Like, screw you. Okay? And I'm going to key your car tonight, too, or something. So and again, if the kid wants to talk with you on number 5, I can talk with you. It doesn't have to be this elongated conversation, but it just simply says to the kid is, you're important enough to me that I notice things about you. What am I doing? That's what you're developmentally doing. You're filling that hole in their life. Therapy. A lot of times all I'm simply doing is listening. And I'll have people sobbing. I can't believe the things that they'll tell me that have happened to them. I mean, things that's like, wow. And my boss lots of times looks at me like, you listen to that stuff every day? It's like, yeah, I do. How'd you get him to tell you about that? Just sit and listen. Is listening hard work? Because my wife will say, oh, you know, all you did is drink coffee and sat there the whole day. True story. But at the end of the day, if you do a good job listening, you are what? See, it'll just be like this presentation this morning. You roll into the afternoon, and some of you will be on the nod. Because what? You worked really hard this morning listening. Let's give you step 7. Step 7 is now you want to flush it out. Is it working? Is it not working? And I do what? I go to that kid and ask him to do something for me, or to stop doing something for me. Always followed by what? Thank you. That's that assumption of compliance. That's just that people respect. Okay, so now you got my email address, right? Because I'm not just talking the talk. I'll make it a point of getting together with you. You're running into the snag in this thing, so we can wind up doing this. But this is so important that effective schools really understand the power of those relationships. Another thing too is, does this kid feel included? Well, my question then is these two tie together, don't they? That degree of inclusion. How many of your kids come to school and feel like they're absolute loners? And some of them, that's the role that they play in their family. Just Another one is having that sense of control. Think of it this way. What will kids do to get control back if they don't think that they have it? Anything. How many have run into kids that are cutters? That's all about control. Kids with eating disorders. It's all about control. How many have ever seen kids with trichotillomania? Does anybody know what that is? Watch the top of their heads, and you'll see these little bald spots come about. I'm trying to control my anxiety. How many have ever seen kids with OCD? Obsessive compulsive disorder. Everything's got to be. A lot of your kids with anxiety disorders will also have some OCD characteristics as well. I'm trying to do what? Control. Vandalism. When kids vandalize things, it's all about control. I'll do whatever I gotta do to get the control back. See, that's a wise district. It doesn't spend all this time wearing themselves out, battling with kids, but steps back and says, hey, how are we doing on these 5 developmental goals? That's where I think you want to go. There is a place for curriculum development, but I don't think it comes before you take a look at the behavioral needs. That's why you have Maslow's hierarchy. Those of you who are familiar with it. Okay, thoughts, questions on that? Last one, how about making them feel safe? What role does sarcasm have? That's a middle school, high school problem sometimes. Is that it's easy to get sarcastic with these kids. Can't do it. Because what they'll do is they're going to get you back. Okay. So, let's go to the bottom of the page. Do kids come to school today different than what different interests? Yeah, we decided that earlier. Many of the students we deal with haven't bonded well with the key adults in their world. Research has told us that these developmental needs are not met. It's going to be extremely difficult to work with this child and certainly difficult to teach him any one thing. That's the difference between mediocre staffs. That's the difference between mediocre staffs and master level staffs. Master level staffs know how to work with kids and know how to assess. Again, I don't want you to work harder. I want you to work what? Smarter. Does it matter if I'm a para, teacher, secretary? No. This is, I mean, these aren't just one person's kids. These are everybody's kids, if you're going to make it work. Now, if you look at the bottom of the page then, do you see where I got this little diagram on the very bottom of the page? Let's go back to this point about kids psychologically dropping out of school. See, what happens is they have that negative experience. We're the kindergarten teachers. Okay, help me teach for a second. Do this on Monday so that you can report back in the next staff meeting so that I got a degree of credibility, because what I'm about to throw out to you, okay, this whole thing about kids dropping out of school, kindergarten level, I had one person go, well, has that been empirically proven? I don't need to empirically prove it. And I just said, kindergarten teachers, straighten this person out. Help me for a moment. If you have those little nose peckers on Monday, draw something for you, make something for you. Will those kids keep their eyes on their own projects, or will those kids' eyes float to other kids' projects? Say it louder.
Other kids' projects.
Bingo. What am I doing? I'm programming the hard drive in my computer. Did you notice that by now, at this point in time of the year, that some of your kids who don't feel real good about their academic abilities have learned that they can use the bathroom pass for other things than going to the bathroom? Mm-hmm. If they're gonna sharpen the pencil, it's gonna be 300 scenic trips to sharpen the pencil. When you tell them to hurry up, they go slower. Other thing that you gotta be very careful you don't do, teachers, is do not send those kids down to the office unless you are either gonna kill the kid or the kid's gonna kill somebody else. Because that happened with my staff. They were throwing these kids out of the classroom like a revolving door. Wow, I gotta now talk to the principal. I have one little kid moonwalk in. And my secretary of 61 and a half years, and I only got 6 more months and I'm gonna retire. Okay. So she gets up in this kid's face, and what are you here for? Help me, do they ever know why they're there? I don't know, you do it second. Yeah, please, what's your first name?
Brittany.
Brittany, you said? Do they ever know why they're there?
No.
No. And they got this kind of, almost kind of catatonic look like, I don't know. And then Marie go, wow, you must have been doing something. Maybe I was talking a little bit. Now who looks like they need to be on Prozac? Classroom teacher. Okay? And see, when they come, do you get the other side of the story? No. The other thing too is, this kid is whipped up in a state of emotion. They're not gonna hear a whole lot of what you're saying. And going to the elementary office, this is not punishment, this is entertainment. There's all kinds of busy things going on in that office, isn't there? Who forgot their lunch, who threw up on the playground, are we gonna have a fire drill? You know, I mean, you wear a lot of hats down there, don't you? So, my staff, we had a battle in a staff meeting, and finally I said, here's what I'm gonna do. Because, how do they want the kid coming back from the classroom? They want the kid dragging a leg, right? They want that blood trip. And so then my staff, they look at it, what did he say? I don't know, we just were talking. Talking? I didn't send that kid down there to talk. I don't know what went on. So here's the thing that we finally came to an agreement. If you send the kid down, okay, I deal with them, you gotta either accept it, or the other option is I'm gonna look at the kid and go, oh my God, I'm glad she's not mad at me. Good luck, Bubba. And I go up and go cover in their classroom. After a little while, once the kid got a chance to settle down, the teacher got a chance to settle down, and I just say, hey, why don't you two go work this out? Then that way the kid got the message that says, who's the ultimate authority in that classroom? Teacher. Otherwise, the unsaid message to the kids in my building was, the only person who can control you is the building principal. I got nothing. Just food for thought type of thing, okay? All right, so what I want you to do then is I want you to draw an arrow from 1 to 2. And see, that's that whole belief system that says, I can't read, or I can't do that, or I can't do school, or I can't, and then fill in the blank. That's the thing that you also will see later on in adulthood in therapy. I can't get along. I can't control my temper. I had a guy, earlier in the week, got mad at the manufacturing place where he's working at, throws a tape measure, just screaming and yelling. I can't control my anger. What do you mean you can't control it? Or won't control it? See, we need to teach that kid that, skill early on. You can do this. But a lot of your kids that are academic underachievers are academic underachievers because of that negative belief system. Now, 1 and 2 you're not gonna see. 3 you will, because they're not doing what? They're not doing your work. And that's the wise staff member that steps back and says, I don't wanna work harder. I gotta start to figure out how to undo that kid's label that he created for himself, or she created for themselves. You with me? Okay, now let's keep rolling. Let's give you some other things. Developing a school character. I can't spend a lot of time on this because we don't have a lot of time. But if I'm working in your building, what I'm doing is I'm trying to look at ways how to let kids learn from their problems. I'm not trying to consequence you for everything imaginable. I also want them to take ownership of things like your schoolwork. Just making some sense? That their quality of life is going to be dependent upon those quality decisions that they make. That's called executive functioning. If you get kids that have that mastered, you have now loaded the dice 7 to 5 in your favor, that they're going to graduate, you'll have high academic performances, but more importantly is, you aren't going to have kids dying of suicides, drug overdoses, unwanted pregnancies. Hey, you wind up having that in your life as a high school kid, the whole course of your life has now been changed, hasn't it? Okay, all right. You're gonna wind up owning and solving some of those problems. We're gonna deal with kids on an individual basis. A key one in there is, staff's not gonna be the cause of kids' anger. Why do you not want this kid to get mad at you? Because every time this kid gets mad at you, you have now stolen the opportunity for psychological learning. They're more focused on what? Not what they did, but how am I getting back at you? How am I gonna get a control battle? We already talked about the 3 R's a little bit. We can blow beyond that one. Here's another one that's really important. Let's go back to this triangle for a moment. And this is really core. We're talking about up there is they need to set firm boundaries and limits. Here's why you're doing this. Because what you're doing is you're reenacting what should have taken place in this home, but didn't take place in this home. Now, Chuck, there'll be somebody that will say, well, we can't control what goes on with these parents. True. But I can help this kid adjust while they're here in my room. Here's what Family Systems believes. How many ever seen a mobile over top of a baby's crib? So if I pull on one part of the mobile, what will happen to the rest of the pieces? It all moves, doesn't it? See, here's where your staff sells themselves short. They believe that they don't have that powerful impact on kids' lives. If I change my behavior, the little buggers don't have any other choice while they're in my room but to change their behavior, or in my gym. It's all the same, right? So to set those firm limits, these are behaviors that I have total control over. I'm not going to get mad at this kid, and I'll show you some strategies in a minute, how most of these kids are going to try to test this limit and get you mad, because they're going to do what? Argue, aren't they? I'm not going to get into a lot of lecturing and reasoning. A lot of you guys get into what they call down south, what they call it splaining. You talk things to death. Shut up. You're standing at the bus stop in your shorts. You're really cold. Wow, that's really sad. Can I go inside? No. But you can make a choice about wearing pants or not wearing pants. Let me know what works for you. Good luck. But I'm really cold. I know. I would be cold too. I can't imagine how you're doing that. And those flip-flops? Hey. See how this rolls? See, I don't get into all this. No, you can't go inside. You're just back with lots of empathy. Oh. saying. I don't make threats I can't back up. And I don't get into giving repeated warnings. See, if you give lots of warnings, ever go to Walmart and watch kids at the checkout line with candy? How's that usually roll? Level number one is what? Can I have a candy bar? No, we already talked about this, but we can have it. Now, the kid's gonna do what? Let's push it to level two. And you promised me a candy bar last time. You hate me. See how they keep ratcheting it up? To the point that the parent finally goes, take the stupid candy bar and just shove. Right? And then the parents are coming and like, I don't know why they never listen to me until, see this blood vessel right here in my neck? They'll never listen until it sticks out. I gotta yell at them all the time. Wow, how did you train that kid to do that? I didn't train him to do that. Just did. What did the parent do? In your notes, that's what's called negative reinforcement. See, that's the same thing when lots of instructional time gets lost in the classroom by giving directions over again and again and again. I'll give them to you once, maybe twice. Then it's like, hey, you got any friends? Yeah. I'd ask them. They're busy teaching right now. Okay? So, that's your core. Here's why you do it. Because it didn't happen at home, but it doesn't mean it can't happen here. And that's going to be the same thing that's going to happen where? Work, isn't it? Is the same thing going to be true in relationships with other people? Yes or no? You're doing the head nod. I'm going into the, okay. Yeah. See, now in 15, 20 years down the road, who's going to appreciate this the most? That this kid's got this, this is a social skill to recognize boundaries of other people. Who's going to appreciate this the most? Fourth boss, second spouse. They didn't get it, did they? That one always gets far more laughed at that point if they got it. Because what's the first spouse going to do? Leave. Goodbye, Sally. See, this is what makes these people now employable. That's the rub that American business has. And that's why the whole direction of these charter schools, you know who's really behind that, don't you? That's part of USA, who? Wall Street. Because big business is behind that. And they want what? I gotta have employable workers. And frankly, the direction I see this going right now is going to be, if things don't change, chances are probably pretty good that a lot of your charter schools are going to have your upper level kids, and your public schools are going to be a warehouse for kids with all kinds of problems. Sadly, but that's the direction I think it's going. Okay. All right. Now, would it be worthwhile to sit for 3 hours listening to somebody if we could teach you how to get kids to quit arguing with you? Yes or no? Even your own kids, right? Okay, here we go. Now, remember what we talked about before? We talked about these different levels that these kids are going to go, right? I'm going to try ramping this up. So level number one, I want you to practice going brain dead. Does anybody need any practice on that? Now, there's two different styles of going brain dead. There is giving kids the skunk eye, or there's this, which is more powerful. Why? Because they stay out of what? Anger, lecture, threats, and warning. And it says what to the kid? I know that you know that I know what you're doing. And we're not going down that road. Go ahead, Kelly. You're going to say something.
No, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Here's another thing. Never reason with a kid that wants to argue. Why? Because they're playing by a whole complete different set of rules. Like, how many have ever had problems getting kids to pick their stuff up around the house? Anybody? Like toys. You want to know how the Gasser kids learn how to pick up toys? it wasn't from reading Parent Magazine. Parent Magazine had this 5-page article of what I'm supposed to do. So I'm supposed to get down eye level to eye level with Festus. Focus. Now, if you learn how to pick up all your toys, by the time that you get to school, you know, you'll be in the honor roll, and we'll have a little bumper sticker on the back of the soccer van. Now, the 2 and 3-year-old kids go, oh my God, Dad, now I know the reason why I gotta pick up my toys. Shoot, why didn't you just say it earlier? Do they do that? So we just said, hey, only pick up the ones you wanna keep. And the other one's gonna go, oh, they'll go to the toy jail. What happens to them then? Oh, sometimes there's chances that they could be paroled. When would that be? I'm thinking 12/25 might be a good day. It's just kind of fun is to watch a kid unwrap a Barbie doll and go, oh, I had one that looked just like this. Could you do the same thing with high school? With clothes? Like how many times you ever come into the house and the clothes have exploded off of their body? This can be used on spouses as well. You just pick them up. Oh my gosh, I re-gifted a lot of clothes. Dad, you are so cheap. You're right. Okay. Now, on Monday, if you use this very first intervention, going brain dead, will the kids go, Paul was here, wasn't he? I'm not messing with you guys. Nope, probably not. Okay, so let's go to the next one. I want you to think about developing a detachment statement. And see what a detachment statement is this. Okay, you have your Paul for a second here. Detachment, watch this. The kid's just trying to do what? They're just trying to pull me into this battle. The wise teacher is the one that goes, oh, you've learned to do this by messing with other people that weren't as skilled as me. I'm better skilled than you. Okay? And see, what I'm going to do here, sweet Festus, is I'm going to have a little line that says, I get too much to argue with you. But this isn't fair! I get too much to argue with you. Or let's talk about it later. See, I'd like to have you as a staff that would have all your own little one-liners that you could use. See, you might even come up with something with just kind of a couple of just soft words. Like if you were down in Oklahoma, in Woodard, Oklahoma, where I did a presentation, I had a dad or a man that ran a foster care facility for boys. He said, I don't know, do you think this would work? I don't know, you didn't tell me what it is yet. He says, when they come on up and they're just kind of yelling and screaming, you use a different word, the B word. And he says, I just look down at the ground, I just kind of kick the ground and go, dang, dang. Charles Bay, one of my bosses, he was doing some research for his doctoral paper, and he was interviewing parents that had raised really, really good kids. And he interviewed this one woman that she'd raised like, I don't know, 15, 14 kids. And she had this whole litter of kids. And he goes, well, how'd you do it? She goes, I don't know. I guess I just did it the way Pa did it. Okay, how did Pa do it? Well, we get to fight and saying stupid things. He just look at us and just say, kitten bridges. Just I was getting some doggone matter. How do I put this in a doctoral thesis about parenting skills using the word kitten bridges? It's not empirical either, is it? And Charles goes, well, what's that mean? She goes, I honestly didn't know either. So I went to Paul one day and I asked him, I said, what's kitten bridges mean? He just shrugged his shoulders and goes, I don't know. I said, well, why'd you say it all the time? He said, well, I just thought when kids said something stupid, you just match it up. That's funny, I don't care. All right? Now, what if they push it to level 3? They push it to level 3. I want to just go ahead and use an enforceable statement. I just keep saying things like, I'll talk to you when your voice is sweet as mine. See, I've done a lot of presentations down south, and those southern people, they know how to work it. I mean, they just know how to work people, and it's like, you can get as mad as you want. That's why they make fun of all those Yankees up here. It's like, oh, I'll be talking to you when you're sweet. See how fun that is? Make sense? Okay, so the enforceable statement part is really valuable. And see, what an enforceable statement, I'm gonna ask you to write this in your notes, is this. Enforceable statement is a good way of taking good care of yourself, mainly because it's not telling you what the kid's gonna do, but it's telling the kid what I'm gonna do. I'll talk to you when you're sweet. Is this arguing? You know, I argue at 12:15 and at 3:30. If you need to argue, pick one. That's still what? That's totally enforceable. We used the parenting one at home. When our kids were, making a mess out of the house, I came home one night, and doggone it, the house just looked like a refugee camp. And my wife was just wild. She's so mad. It's like, oh no, you expect me to go rid of the house, the mess. I said, so why are you cleaning up the mess? Did you make it? No, they did this. Get your coat. Well, how are they gonna eat? I don't know. See, there's 12 creative things that you can do with toast. Where are we going? You and I are going out to eat. And while we're out to eat at Culver's, we just got that really expensive stationery called napkins, and we just started writing out enforceable statements. One of the ones we had was,